As soon as he heard the Ukrainian accent, banker David's expression changed. He categorized Victoria Petrov as a high-risk customer. But Victoria's phone contact list included the Federal Reserve Chairman, Treasury Secretary, and CEOs of the world's largest investment banks. In Manhattan's financial district, at the heart of Wall Street, First National Bank had been operating since 1847 as one of America's most established financial institutions. 2,400 branches across 47 states, $890 billion in assets, and providing credit services to 67% of the Fortune 500. Victoria Petrov, 38 years old, an elegant woman wearing a Ralph Lauren coat, Louboutin shoes, and carrying a Hermes bag. Most importantly, she had come to the U.S. from Ukraine 12 years ago and was now the founder and CEO of one of America's largest fintech companies. PetroTech Financial Solutions was a world leader in blockchain technology, cryptocurrency exchanges, and digital banking solutions. Offices in 15 countries, 12,000 employees, and a market value of $23 billion. But today, Victoria was just a customer wanting a home loan. David Martinez, 32 years old, 8 years at First National, mortgage specialist. Finance degree from NYU, average salary $95,000 plus commission. Lives in suburban New Jersey, has 2 children, and focuses on working with elite customers for career advancement. But David had a problem: unconscious bias, especially regarding foreign accents and non-traditional wealth indicators. "Good morning," Victoria said, approaching David's desk in the mortgage department. Her Ukrainian accent was slight but noticeable, refined by years of American business interactions. "Good morning," David replied, immediately cataloging. Foreign accent, probably Eastern European, possibly recent immigrant. His smile was professional but guarded. "I would like to apply for a home mortgage," Victoria continued, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Of course," David said, pulling out standard application forms. "What's your employment status? Are you working legally in the United States?" The question was inappropriate and potentially discriminatory, but David asked it automatically when he heard foreign accents. "I'm a permanent resident," Victoria replied calmly, used to such questions. "I work in financial technology." David's assumptions crystallized: immigrant, probably low-paying tech support job, possibly limited English proficiency despite her apparent fluency. "What kind of financial technology?" David asked, typing notes into his computer system. "I run a fintech company," Victoria answered simply. David's fingers paused. "You mean you work for a fintech company?" "No, I own one." David's eyebrows raised slightly. Claims of business ownership were common among immigrant applicants trying to inflate their qualifications. He'd seen it dozens of times. "I see," David said, making a note. "Claims business ownership, verify employment." "And what's the name of this company?" David asked, pen poised over the application. "PetroTech Financial Solutions," Victoria replied. David wrote it down but didn't recognize the name. He made another mental note to Google it later, assuming it was probably a small local business. "How long have you been with this company?" David continued. "I founded it 12 years ago," Victoria said. David's skepticism deepened. A 12-year-old company run by someone with a foreign accent? Either this was embellishment or a very small operation. "And what's your annual income from this business?" Victoria pulled out a folder from her Hermes bag. "Here are my tax returns for the past 3 years." David examined the documents. The numbers made him blink. $2.3 million, $2.8 million, $3.1 million in reported income. "These seem unusually high," David said carefully. "Are these gross business revenues or personal income?" "Personal income," Victoria clarified, "after taxes." David frowned. Either these were fraudulent documents or this woman was significantly wealthier than she appeared. But her accent and foreign background triggered his fraud alert training. "Mrs. Petrov, I'll need to verify these documents with additional sources. High-income claims require extra scrutiny, especially for non-native applicants." Victoria's expression didn't change, but she noted the casual discrimination in his language. David opened his computer system and navigated to the applicant risk assessment portal. Unknown to Victoria, First National had implemented an informal flagging system for high-risk demographics, a practice that skirted the edge of legal discrimination. He checked several boxes: foreign national, claims high income, unusual accent, potential documentation issues. "Mrs. Petrov," David said, "I'm going to need additional verification. Bank statements, business registration documents, employer verification letters." "I brought bank statements," Victoria said, handing him another folder. David opened it and nearly choked. Chase private client statements showing balances of $47 million, $23 million, and $31 million across different accounts. "These numbers," David started, then stopped. "Are these real accounts?" "Would you like me to call Chase to verify?" Victoria asked calmly. David was torn between disbelief and the growing realization that he might be making a mistake, but his training told him that sophisticated fraud often included realistic-looking fake documents. "Mrs. Petrov, what exactly does your company do?" "We provide blockchain infrastructure for major financial institutions, payment processing, cryptocurrency exchanges, digital wallets." David nodded as if he understood, but blockchain technology was largely foreign to him. It sounded like the kind of vague tech speak that scammers often used. "And your clients?" JPMorgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, Credit Suisse. Victoria listed them casually. David's fraud alerts were going off. This foreign woman claiming to work with the biggest names in finance? It seemed too convenient, too perfect. Victoria's iPhone buzzed during the conversation. The caller ID showed Goldman Sachs Executive Office. "Excuse me," Victoria said, declining the call. "Important call?" David asked sarcastically. "Business can wait," Victoria replied. Another buzz. JPMorgan, Chairman's office, declined again. "Popular lady," David commented, his tone suggesting he thought the calls were fake or irrelevant. A third call. Federal Reserve Bank direct line. Victoria looked at it and declined once more. "Mrs. Petrov," David said, "I appreciate your time, but these interruptions suggest you might not be taking this application seriously." Victoria's patience was being tested, but she maintained her composure. "Mr. Martinez, I'm taking this very seriously. What additional information do you need?" David consulted his computer screen, where the risk assessment algorithm had flagged her application as high risk. Proceed with extreme caution. "I'm afraid we'll need to decline your application at this time," David announced. Victoria blinked. "Decline? On what basis?" "Insufficient documentation, unclear income sources, and risk factors that don't meet our lending standards." "Risk factors?" Victoria asked, her voice still calm but with an edge. David realized he was in potentially problematic territory, but pressed on. "Mrs. Petrov, our bank has specific criteria for mortgage approvals. We need to see stable, verifiable income from recognized employers." "I showed you 3 years of tax returns and bank statements." "Yes, but claims of running a major technology company. It's difficult to verify, especially for applicants from certain backgrounds." There it was, the discrimination, barely veiled. "Certain backgrounds?" Victoria repeated. David backtracked. "I mean, international applicants. We have to be extra careful about documentation fraud." Victoria's phone rang again. This time the caller ID said, U.S. Treasury Secretary, personal line. She looked at David. "May I take this?" "It might be relevant to our conversation." "Mrs. Petrov, I don't think prank calls will help your application." Victoria smiled for the first time since entering the bank. She answered the phone on speaker. "Hello, Secretary Williams?" "Victoria? I've been trying to reach you. We need to discuss the new cryptocurrency regulations before tomorrow's Federal Open Market Committee meeting." David's face went white. "I'm actually at a bank right now, Mr. Secretary." "Having some difficulty with a mortgage application." "A mortgage application?" "Victoria, you could buy the bank. What's the problem?" David stared at the phone as if it might bite him. The Treasury Secretary was talking to Victoria about cryptocurrency regulations and Federal Reserve meetings. "Well," Victoria said into the phone, "the loan officer seems to think I don't have sufficient income verification. Secretary Williams laughed. Victoria, you're worth more than most Fortune 500 CEOs. What bank is this? First National Bank, Manhattan location. First National? They've been trying to get approved for our new fintech partnership program. Maybe I should mention their customer service standards to Chairman Powell. David's hands started trembling. Chairman Powell meant Federal Reserve, Chairman Jerome Powell, the most powerful person in American banking. That won't be necessary, Victoria said quickly. I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. She hung up and looked at David, who had gone completely pale. Mr. Martinez, Victoria said gently, would you like to reconsider my application? David's computer screen still showed her risk assessment, high risk, but everything in his world was shifting. Mrs. Petrov, there might have been some confusion in our initial review. Victoria's phone rang again. This time she answered immediately. Hi, Jamie, she said casually. David could hear the voice on the other end. Victoria, it's Jamie Dimon. Are we still on for the blockchain infrastructure meeting next week? Jamie Dimon, CEO of JPMorgan Chase, talking to Victoria like an old friend. Actually, Jamie, Victoria said, looking directly at David, I'm at First National Bank trying to get a simple mortgage, and they seem to think I'm not qualified. First National? Victoria, you could buy them tomorrow if you wanted. What's their problem? I think they're concerned about my accent and background. There was a pause on the phone. Put me on speaker. Victoria complied. This is Jamie Dimon, CEO of JPMorgan. Who am I speaking to? David could barely find his voice. David Martinez, mortgage specialist. Mr. Martinez, you're talking to Victoria Petrov, founder and CEO of PetroTech Financial Solutions. We have a $4.7 billion contract with her company. She's one of the most important fintech entrepreneurs in America. David felt his career crumbling in real time. Furthermore, Dimon continued, if First National is discriminating against clients based on accent or nationality, JPMorgan might need to reconsider our correspondent banking relationship with you. The threat was subtle, but devastating. JPMorgan's correspondent banking relationship with First National was worth hundreds of millions in annual revenue. Mr. Dimon, David stammered, there's been a misunderstanding, has there? Because it sounds like you refused a mortgage to someone worth $890 million based on the way she talks. Victoria disconnected the call and looked at David with patient amusement. Should we discuss my mortgage application again? David's supervisor, branch manager Patricia Collins, appeared at his desk within minutes. She'd been monitoring the situation after their computer system flagged unusual attention to the applicant. Mr. Martinez, Patricia said quietly, is everything all right here? David looked at her desperately. Mrs. Collins, this is Mrs. Petrov. She's applying for a mortgage. Patricia looked at Victoria, noting her expensive clothes and composed demeanor. Is there a problem with the application? David initially declined it, Victoria said calmly, due to concerns about my background and income verification. Patricia's expression sharpened. What concerns? David realized he was trapped. Well, Mrs. Petrov has a foreign accent, and her claimed income seemed unusually high for someone of her background. Patricia's face went white. Her background? Victoria's phone rang again. This time the caller ID read, Warren Buffett, personal. She showed it to Patricia, who recognized the name immediately. Excuse me, Victoria said, answering. Hello, Warren. Victoria, my dear, are you free for lunch next week? I want to discuss Berkshire's investment in cryptocurrency infrastructure. I'm actually having an interesting morning, Warren. I'm at a bank where they're reluctant to give me a mortgage because of my accent. Buffett's laugh was audible throughout the office. An accent. Victoria, you speak better English than most CEOs I know. What bank? First National. First National. Patricia Collins is the branch manager there, isn't she? Good woman. Put her on the phone. Patricia Collins, recognizing she was about to speak with Warren Buffett, took the phone with shaking hands. Mr. Buffett, this is Patricia Collins. Patricia, good to hear from you. I understand you have Victoria Petrov there. She's one of the brightest financial minds I've encountered in decades. Patricia looked at Victoria with new understanding. Yes, sir. Patricia, Victoria is worth nearly $1 billion. If your bank can't handle a simple mortgage for her, perhaps she should take her business elsewhere, all $47 million of it. Patricia's knees nearly buckled. $47 million in deposits meant Victoria was one of their largest individual clients. Mr. Buffett, there seems to have been a communication issue. We'll resolve this immediately. Good. Victoria, dear, if they give you any more trouble, just call me. I'll buy the bank and fire everyone. The call ended, and Patricia immediately turned to David. Mr. Martinez, my office, now. As they walked away, Victoria remained seated, checking emails on her phone, messages from Christine Lagarde at the European Central Bank, from the Bank of England governor, from the Swiss National Bank president. Patricia returned within 5 minutes, her face grave. Mrs. Petrov, on behalf of First National Bank, I offer our sincerest apologies. Mr. Martinez's actions were completely inappropriate and do not represent our institution's values. She continued, David Martinez is no longer employed by First National Bank. Discrimination based on accent, nationality, or appearance is grounds for immediate termination. Victoria looked up from her phone. Thank you, Patricia. But this isn't just about David. It's about systematic bias in your lending practices. Patricia nodded nervously. What would you suggest? Mandatory bias training for all staff, anonymous reporting systems for discrimination complaints, and perhaps most importantly, education about the diverse backgrounds of successful entrepreneurs in America. Absolutely. We'll implement everything you recommend. Victoria stood up, gathering her documents. Patricia, I won't be needing that mortgage after all. Patricia's heart sank. They were losing a nearly billion-dollar client. Actually, Victoria continued, I've decided to buy the house with cash, but I will be moving my accounts to a bank that understands the value of all clients, regardless of where they were born. 6 months later, David Martinez was working at a small credit union in New Jersey. His career in elite banking permanently ended. First National Bank implemented the Petrov protocols, comprehensive anti-discrimination training that became an industry standard. Victoria Petrov bought a $12 million penthouse on Fifth Avenue with cash, but more importantly, she established the Immigrant Entrepreneur Foundation, providing loans and mentorship to foreign-born business owners who face discrimination in traditional banking. Her phone still rings constantly, calls from Treasury officials, Federal Reserve governors, and billionaire investors. But now when she walks into banks, they recognize not just her accent, but her authority. Sometimes the most powerful response to discrimination is simply being undeniably successful.